Okay, welcome. Drink with James, episode 62. I have a question to start this off with, maybe more of a story. So everyone on the trip to Hawaii was annoyed with me because I was bound and determined to finish this book I was reading, which is Henry James's Portrait of a Lady, which was very good, but also very much 600 pages of like single-spaced 9 font on like broadsheet essentially. So the book took me forever to read. I was thinking about reading and writing and not arithmetic, which I hate, but back when I used to do more on the internet and write blog posts and do all these things, I felt like picking up a reading habit early and reading, I read or listen to 25 to 40 books a year probably, helped me so much to learn how to write, because I would just copy. Like, I would read a book and be like, oh, I really like the way that person writes. I'm going to try and copy that. And by copying, 50 authors over the last 10 years, I was able to basically fake my way into being a halfway decent writer. And I did the same thing with photography. I used to see photos I loved that Jamie Beck or someone else took, and I would just go out and try and copy that photo almost exactly, because if I could copy it, then I could learn how to do it. Same thing when I was editing photos, like trying to get people's tones. I would literally pull up their photo next to me in Photoshop and adjust things until I could get the colors and everything the same, so I would know what they did. So I'm wondering, for y'all who are now every day creating content, just how much you're thinking about writing, and if you're doing a lot of reading. We had a conversation in Hawaii about how we've seen, in general, longer posts where influencers kind of write something very personal, doing better and engagement. And there was a post we really loved from Kayla, not your standard. Tim will put up here. That was she posted the next day that was a direct result of that conversation we had. She's generally not smiling in her photos. She's got like a very elevated, beautiful feed, but she's not a very there's smiley bloggers and there's bloggers that aren't smiley, and she is not a smiley blogger, but she posted this photo I took of her floating on like a paddle board in the middle of the ocean, and wrote this whole post about how thankful she is that this is her job, and how thankful she is that she has all these followers that support her, and et cetera, and it did really, really well. So I'm interested, I guess, in a few things, in knowing, one, do you guys read? Are you reading a lot, and kind of how are you thinking about writing? And we talk on the show all the time about things that you can do, ways that you can kind of tweak your schedule or the kind of content you create. And I think people are often thinking really visually about the types of things they're doing, but are you focusing as much on the captions and blog posts and writing side of things? I'd be just interested to know, because it is a way that you can set yourself apart. I mean, look at, obviously Leandra was here very early, but Leandra set herself apart from her writing. Now she's a very talented writer, and it's not like any of us can just start writing in that way with that kind of unique voice, but you can start to differentiate yourself, I think, through your writing. So I'd be interested to know if you guys are thinking about that, if it's something that you focus on as much as the visual side of things. Moving on to questions. If you're pitching a brand, the question is essentially like, what kind of wording should I use and how should I position myself to this brand? I think the first thing is knowing what your value is, right? And knowing what that brand could want from you. So I think an effective pitch, as we've talked about before, there's a part of the process that is opportunity. And so there needs to be an opportunity. So if you are pitching a brand, you have to create the opportunity. So you have to understand that brand well enough to have a good idea about what they need, one, and if you can't get that, what very, very unique thing you have to offer that you think they might want. So either what they need or a unique thing that you can offer that you think that brand will want, and you need to focus on that. And so it doesn't matter if you have 10,000 followers and you're feeling a little weird about that because you wish you had 100,000. If you have something very unique to offer, hey, the 10,000 followers I have all follow me for this incredibly specific reason. They all have this same concern that I have, and your brand meets that concern. And so while I don't while I don't have the following of some larger influencers, I have a very specific audience that I think is really going to be super interested in your product. I've used it myself for years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have to kind of play on that. I talk about my mom all the time because she likes it, but also because I think she's interesting. But I'm not going to say how old she is because she'd kill me, but she's an older chic lady, and she loves free shit. Like, that's just her big life's passion, is getting things for free. And so she really has no following, but she sometimes emails brands and says, hey, I'm X amount of years old, and while I don't have a big following, a lot of the people that follow me are of similar age, and we're facing unique problems, and your product, I think, fixes those things or addresses them. And I can speak to, even though I don't have a big following, I'm speaking to either your target audience or an audience that you would have a really hard time reaching otherwise. So I do think you can just highlight the things that you bring to that brand and focus on that. And it's not that you have to ignore the other things, but you want to steer them away from the things that might make them not want to work with you. Like, oh, you don't have a big following. Whatever those issues are, focus on all the big positives, and don't try and play at someone else's game. Again, if you have 10,000 followers, going into a brand and being like, I have 10,000 followers, isn't really going to do anything for you. So you have to think about what value you can provide that brand and focus on that. There's a question about getting a lot of these packages from brands and how you handle that. And this is I was glad someone asked this question, because it's actually something I've been talking to our clients a lot about, and talking to influencers about, and something I recently have maybe changed my mind about. I think 6 months ago I would have said, if you get a package from a brand, InstaStories is a great way to cover it. You can be like, thank you so much, take a photo of it, etc. I think as you grow, my advice today is that influencers should not be doing unboxing videos at all. I think on the whole, they can come across as, what's the word I'm looking for? Entitled, not entitled.
Pretentious?
A little bit pretentious, braggy, right? It's like when you see an influencer who comes home from a trip and they take a photo of the 30 boxes that are piled up in their living room from all the brands of all this free stuff they got, and they're just like, oh, thanks Chanel, oh, thanks Dior, oh, thanks this brand, oh, thanks this brand, oh, thanks this brand. One, what we tell our clients is you don't want to be involved in that. You don't want to be Chanel sending gifts to a bunch of influencers and having them be like, oh, thanks so much for the free stuff, because that actually degrades the brand a little bit. I remember a personal example. I had a relationship with a beer company years ago, and they sent like 8 cases of beer to the 4-card office, and I Snapchatted it or Instagrammed it or something. I can't remember. It was many years ago. And the person from the brand reached out and said, hey, could you take that down? I snapped like the big stack of 8 cases, and I was like, oh, thanks, beer company. And he was like, could you please take that down? That's like not our vibe. And it was really interesting to me, because I thought like, oh, I'm covering this, but really I was like, hey everyone, look how cool I am. I'm getting free stuff from this brand that you like, that you don't have a relationship with. And so it's actually not doing anything for the brand, it's just doing something for you. And I have heard followers increasingly say they're very frustrated with influencers who are just showing all the free shit they're getting. So do I think you should cover the brands that send you stuff? Yes, you should, if you like the product. Do I think you should take 30 minutes and create some InstaStory specific content for those brands? Yes. So don't do an unboxing and just say, oh, thank you. But try and maybe actually use the product, try and shoot it in a different way so it doesn't feel so much like you're just bragging. And don't, if you get 10 packages on Monday, don't post all 10 on your story the same day. You're just gonna come off as like, once you start to detach from reality, which is natural as you become a more successful influencer, is that your reality becomes slowly but surely different from the reality of all your followers. You don't want that chasm to become too large. because they will feel like you've lost all of your credibility. They'll feel like everything that you do is sponsored, every product you use is sponsored, or it was given to you for free. And maybe that is true, but there is a more authentic way to do it, which is to actually take some time and think about how you want to cover the products that you're getting for free, and do that in a way that feels editorial and interesting, because I guarantee nobody really thinks you opening a bunch of free shit that they wish they got is super interesting, because I just don't think it is. Small caveat, I have seen beauty influencers do a good job with it, where they kind of walk through, they are saying, okay, first up is this brand, and they're walking through the benefits, they're actually using it, they're putting the shades on their hand, things like that. So I have seen beauty influencers be able to do it effectively, but it is much more, it's YouTubers who are used to reviewing beauty products, and so they're actually doing mini reviews because they're not going to do full YouTube videos on it. So that feels helpful, but taking a photo of the box, the Chanel box, and saying like, thanks Chanel Beauty for sending all of this, that is, again, that's not helpful for Chanel. That's not helpful for your followers. That just is you bragging. So nobody likes braggers. So my mother tells me. And I'm saying, still post that content on stories. Don't clog up your Instagram feed necessarily. Stories is a great place to cover the gifted stuff that you're getting, but do it in a way that is going to still be interesting content for your followers, and is going to make the brand be seen in a good light. And again, I do hear very often from people who aren't in this world, who just follow influencers, that the free stuff is getting to be ridiculous and it feels like too much, and they're just turned off from it. So you can avoid moving into that space. So I had a question about giveaways. I know that it is a way that influencers are trying to grow their following. It is effective in some ways. We'll talk about it shortly. But how do brands feel about giveaways? So I think on the whole, brands, you're not going to damage your brand equity too much if you do 4 giveaways a year or something. It is a way to potentially jumpstart your following. It is a way to gain, followers pretty quickly. It is a little it's a little eye-rolly, I think, honestly. And we talked about this before at some point, but I think the problem is that it did work so well in the beginning. I think a few influencers started doing it around Christmas of last year, and they were giving away basically just anything Gucci. I feel like it was either a Gucci bag, or it was a Gucci t-shirt, or it was a Gucci belt, or it was the Gucci loafers, but it was Gucci everything. And it worked really well, and people got a lot of followers. But I think what's happening now, and I hear this from influencers as well, is they're getting a huge burst of followers early on, 5,000, 10,000 in a day, and then they're losing them instantly after the giveaway is done. So I don't really think at this point it's doing you much good as an influencer to do those giveaways. I feel the pain. I feel the pain of trying to grow, and I know it's really hard to grow. I was just in Hawaii with these amazing influencers, and I'm still decently handy behind a camera, and I took some photos, and they tagged me in those photos and said I took them, and I didn't get, I got 5 followers maybe. I certainly didn't gain more than 20 or 30 followers probably over the whole trip. Not that I was out there trying to gain followers, but 5 years ago, if somebody big tagged you in a photo, you would have gained. Again, I remember I took Tula Vintage's photos maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I took photos of her, and she just tagged me, photo credited me, and I got 3,000 followers in a day. That just wouldn't happen anymore. She had 200,000 followers at the time or something. That is just would never happen now. So the world is a different place. Giveaways worked. I don't really think they work anymore as far as long term goes. So I would encourage influencers to create content with each other. Again, I've talked about what the men do. They do this Rat Pack photo, and Tim can find it. But all the big male bloggers in New York get together, and they take photos together, 15 of them, and they all post them. And I really actually enjoy the photos. I think they're really good. I think the guys seem like they're all friends, which is cool. I think menswear on a whole does a lot better job of supporting each other than female influencers do. They're all just kind of in this together, and because it's such a smaller part of the industry than the female side of things, I think they're all trying to be like rising tide floats all ships. Is that the right thing?
Rising tide rises all ships.
Is
Float, right.
A rising tide
Raises all ships.
Whatever, who cares? I'm been drinking. So you get what I'm saying. So I think their feeling is like, if we can all grow, it's good for us all to grow. But they're doing less giveaways and they're doing more like creative projects together. And so a lot of you also say you're feeling burnt out. And so like, why not step back and try and do something interesting with some, some other influencers who are about the same size as you, who you feel like don't share a similar audience to you. Do something more interesting than just giving away product. Get them, create content together and both post it and make it good enough where their followers feel compelled to go to your feed, and then hopefully your feed is really interesting as well and they follow you. That's a follower you want. You don't want to essentially trick somebody into following you because they think they're going to win a Gucci bag. That's not really helpful. Even if they forget to hit unfollow, they're not going to be engaged. They're not going to remember why the hell they followed you. So just try and be better and be supportive of the people in this industry. Everyone's in this together. Everybody is struggling to grow. People at 3, 4, 500,000 followers, I talk to them all the time. Everyone is struggling to grow. And so all y'all could help each other, work together and try and build a following that way. Don't just give away free Gucci shit. It's not going to work. But if you do, I don't think it's going to hurt the brand. Like it's not going to hurt your brand that much. I don't think brands will shy away from working with you. Do one giveaway a month. I would, if it's me, I wouldn't work with you if you were doing a giveaway a month. It would just feel desperate. And there's nothing like the reek of desperation to make people not want to be around you. In life in general and in business, you can't seem desperate. Too many giveaways, reeks of desperation. And that's it. Next week, we've got a guest. The week after that, we've got a guest. The week after that, we all might be dead. So who the fuck knows? Enjoy it while it lasts. Cheers.